experience I want to bring to audience is the experience of racing, not the removed observational perspective of there's this beautiful looking race car on a winding road and a long lens. I wanted to go totally the other way and have you experience something of the necessity for a kind of a zen calm and focus while the world around you is excessively agitated, and you taking this car that's more powerful than you can control out to the edge of adhesion and keeping it right at that point, just shy of tires cutting loose or tires of the engine blowing up, just shy of that. And so that experience, what that feels like, is what determined all the camera placement. I did some amateur racing for about 6 years in the Ferrari Challenge. I understand the aspiration of being a race car driver. I'm not a race car driver. I'm not, Dempsey is, I'm not. But I understand the aspirations of it. So that was I very much admired Sal Bass's work in Grand Prix, for example, but this has a different dramatic perspective. And the actor asked himself, what's my action in the scene? Meaning, what does my character want in this specific scene? And so as a director, I asked myself that same question. What do I want to impact on the audience? And I have to know that as specifically and as focused a way as I can. The sound that the actual competition engine, not just a V12, not just a Ferrari V12, but a full-on competition Ferrari V12 makes, is extraordinary. The stresses on that engine and everything moving, you're talking about chain-driven cams and 48 valves, and everything is moving in perfect harmony at an extreme of 7,000 to 8,000 times a minute. It has a roar, it has power, it feels lethal, dangerous, it's exciting, all those at the same time. Those weren't the engines driving these cars, but the engines driving these cars sounded fine, but it didn't sound like the real competition engine. So we went back afterwards and loaded microphones on the competition 250 and also on Nick Mason's single-seater, which was a V8, and the Maserati that Behrad drives. And took it into the same circumstances as the film and produced some spectacular recordings of these engine sounds. Every actor is different. Every actor has their own school, you know. I mean, it's my job to somehow work with them and communicate to them in their language, not my language. You know, I try to understand how Penelope thinks, how Adam thinks. Adam is very, very particular. Everything's is totally thought out. Liberation comes when we're actually doing it, and he's very, very demanding of himself and very hard on himself. And then the two of us are maybe a little bit similar, which is why we get along so well. Penelope is a force of nature, and there could not be any other actress who could have played Lara the way Penelope Cruz plays Lara. There's a visceral, almost primitive, almost tribal, in the sense of Northern Italian tribes pre-Roman, about the belief system. When she believes something, it's in every molecule in her body, and there's no conversation possible. There's no negotiation. She comes to a conclusion, which is metaphoric, but in her mind it's actual. He's responsible for Dino's death because he was distracted, because he had another wife and he had another son. If he was distracted 4%, that's it. It has very special significance for me to be bringing Ferrari to the New York Film Festival. When I first developed an interest in film, which was in my 20s, New York was kind of a center of cinema from my perspective. I knew Richard Leacock somewhat, who was Penny Baker's cameraman, and the Maisel brothers, and so I had contact with them very early on in the middle '60s and the late '60s, and so New York was this kind of a pure cutting edge center of my generation of filmmakers. John Demme worked for United Artists as a publicist. He wound up working with me in London for a little while. I started a small production company. So New York went to film school in London and back and forth between London and New York. So New York was really a center. But so I've always had a high regard for the New York Film Festival. Particularly, it's bringing world cinema to the attention. of a New York audience as well as, young aspirational filmmakers.